You see, men who are both successful and men who are unsuccessful struggle with this exact same mindset that's keeping them just below their potential. And even if they've reached a peak to their potential, they always drop right back down. They wonder why they start declining. Every man goes through this process, and until you're aware of this mindset, you're never going to change. And this mindset is comparing yourself to other people. This is slowly destroying your life. Comparing yourself to other people. Let's say that you're unsuccessful, right? You're unsuccessful, you're way below where you want to be, you're not getting everything that you want, you're not progressing in life. You're only going to make it worse by comparing yourself to somebody else who you think might be the same as you, who might actually be the same as you, but they're in a different stage of life. See, the reality is every time, it's like driving, right? Imagine that you're speed racing to a certain destination on a highway, and you're looking to the right, and you see somebody speeding through right next to you on the highway. You look to the left, somebody else is right next to you, but you keep looking. You don't even focus on what's in front of you. You don't focus on your own path. You focus on the person who seems like they're so far in front of you. So what do? You switch lanes. You switch lanes, you look at somebody else who's speeding through, making it seem somewhat easy for them, and then you switch lanes trying to do what they're doing, and then you get to the point where you now have to stop because now there's traffic in that lane. And the lane that you were in was a lot faster, but you wasted so much time staying in this lane thinking that this was the right thing to do because you were comparing that person's lane to your lane, to where when you then switch over, you're stuck. And then they're stuck, but they're further along because you didn't know how many times they had to get stuck. You didn't know how many bad things had to happen to them, how many failures or losses had to happen in their journey for them to even get to the point where they were speed racing at that moment. And I say this because that's how life works. The more that you compare yourself to somebody else, the more that you compare yourself to someone who seems to be way further than you, you start to try to copy them. You start to try to do every little thing that they're doing, not knowing that that's unique to their situation, that's unique to their opportunity, to their life, their perspective. Your perspective, your life, your opportunities are going to be different. The things that are going to make you succeed will not or may not necessarily make everybody else succeed. So you're literally crippling yourself every time you look at somebody else who's doing very, very well and you compare yourself, because the other thing that happens is you start to feel like you're not enough, and then you get discouraged and you stop, you quit, you lose your motivation, you lose the inspiration that you had because you're constantly comparing yourself to that other person. It goes the same way in fitness. In fitness, you may look a certain way, but because you're comparing yourself to Mr. Olympia, or you're comparing yourself to that Instagram influencer, not knowing that that Instagram influencer could be editing their pictures. They could be just posting in really good lighting. That's not what they really look like. This is why I never fell in that trap with fitness. I started to, and I shifted away from it. I was seeing myself grow. I was seeing myself succeed. I was in my own lane. I had my own vision on, right? I wasn't looking at other people's lanes. But when I started to peak at the other lane, at that Instagram influencer that I had admired, I started to see myself as I was too small. I started to see myself as I was underdeveloped, which I have time, I have a process to get better, but the fact that I'm looking at somebody else, I'm looking over to that person's lane and trying to copy what they're doing, I'm now getting so discouraged that I don't even want to work out anymore. I don't even want to diet anymore. I don't even want to look the way that I always wanted to look. I don't have that motivation. I don't have that inspiration anymore because I feel like I'm so far behind. The reality is you're not far behind. And also, the person that you're admiring, the person that you're looking at, that you're comparing yourself to, is not better than you. They may have just had different information than you. They may have just had a different perspective that worked for them. And you need to develop a perspective that works for you. The more that you have that comparison mindset, the more that you start to compare yourself to other people, is the time that you slow down in your own progress, because you're no longer going to want to proceed with what you're doing. You're going to just start having shiny object syndrome. It's the same in business. You have a business right now that's moving slow. And what do? You look at somebody else that's doing 50K a month. This 17-year-old, I'm telling you, because this was literally me. You see somebody else doing 50K a month and you're like, man, that person's making 50K a month. I'm not. So that means I need to do what they're doing. I need to go try that business model, not knowing that that person went through so many obstacles during their business to get to where it needed to be. and you didn't, which is why everything takes time. You have a certain timeline. You have a certain process. They have a certain process. They have a certain timeline. Everyone's life happens differently, happens at different points in time. You have low points of your life where someone else may have a high point in their life, but when you have a high point in your life, that person may be having a low point in their life, right? So this is honestly for like when people are just failures. If you haven't won yet, that's why. But even if you have won, even if you are a quote unquote success, right? You still have the opportunity to shrink right back down to where you were before, the low points of your life, that failure state, because now you're comparing yourself to someone who's even bigger than you. And there's a difference between comparing yourself and taking advice from somebody else, or taking little tips and tricks that the other person's doing to implement in your own process. But the minute you completely switch lanes is the minute that you lose all momentum. It's the minute that because when you're winning, right? When you're succeeding, you have momentum. You have to keep the momentum. The minute that you look back and you start doubting your own pursuit and you decide to stop, you've lost your momentum. I've seen this on YouTube. I've seen people start creating content, posting regularly, having a pretty good schedule. They're posting great videos. They're making progress. And all of a sudden, they start looking at other people's pages. They start comparing themselves. I've done this as well. You start comparing yourself to somebody else that has 200,000 subscribers, not knowing that it could have taken them 3 years, 4 years, or even if it took them 1 year, maybe they're a faceless channel. I'm a personal brand. Why am I looking at a faceless channel and comparing myself to a faceless channel? That person's a nerd. That person is not somebody who is actually capable of putting themselves on camera and talking. I have a skill set. I have a unique skill set to communicate, and that's why it's working. By the way, if you want help with building your personal brand on YouTube, one-on-one coaching, the link is in the description. Also, I'm building a school, a group coaching offer for anybody who may not need one-on-one help, but may also want that group aspect, that community aspect. Link is in the description as well. Link will be in the description. Probably first of the month, I'm going to start accepting people, so you might as well sign up for the application so you can be on the wait list. That's going to be a lot more of an affordable option for people who are looking to build their YouTube personal brands. But going back to regular scheduled programming, you do not want to compare yourself to somebody else because that person has a completely different situation than you do. And it's funny because the person that you're comparing yourself to may also be comparing themselves to you. That's the other crazy part. The other person's literally comparing themselves to you as you're comparing yourself to that person. It's like keeping up with the Joneses. You're comparing your success, your assets to somebody else. That person's comparing their assets to you. They may think that you're more successful. I've had big YouTubers that are looking at my growth and saying, man, you're growing a lot. And then they're starting to take my ideas, my titles, which again, I have no issues with, but it shows me that this person doubts themselves. They doubt their process. Why am I doubting my process? You could be trying to start a business right now that there's so many other people who are watching you do it, that see you doing it, that want to do what you're doing, and you're looking at somebody else thinking that they're doing it better than you. You go ahead and switch business models, and then you fail, and then you get frustrated, and then you get into this endless loop, endless cycle of failure, endless cycle of discouragement, and you never reach your true potential. So you need to discard of that mindset. Get rid of the mindset of comparing yourself to anybody because you do not need to. You are one of one. You are the person that you were designed to be. You're created to create your own unique lane. On YouTube, you're created to build your personal brand. Personal, which means you. You're not building a faceless channel that copies everybody else. By the way, those faceless channels is hard to monetize outside of YouTube, and YouTube shuts them down because they're not original. Nobody wants to buy their stuff because they're not original. People want to work with me because I'm original. You need to be original. Women don't want to date you because you're not original. You're copying somebody else because you're afraid to stay in your own lane. You're comparing yourself to somebody else. Stay in your own lane. Your friends don't respect you because you're copying everybody else. You're looking at everybody else instead of yourself, instead of looking internally and fixing what you already have and turning the lemons that you have in life into lemonade. That's the reality of the game. So resist that mindset of comparing yourself to everybody else because it's slowly destroying your life. Every year that you go by comparing yourself is every year that you stop taking action because you're discouraged. Every year that you keep pivoting left and right, trying to find the next best business model, rather than sticking to what is working for you at that moment, even if it's slow. All right. So like, comment, subscribe, share with a friend who needs to see this, that constantly compares themselves to everybody, shows you a bunch of like these Instagram influencers comparing their bodies to them, comparing their success to them. You see somebody driving a Porsche and you think that they're better than you. No, it could be a facade. And also it could be that they just had better information than you that's going to take time for you to develop. You have to become the person that has the things, that has that success. They probably became that person faster than you because they understand the concept of identity shifting. I already made a video around this on how to be him, identity shifting, right? That's going to help you with that. But internalize this, right? I appreciate you guys. Conquer the world, conquer yourself, conquer your life. And I'm going to catch you on the next video.